watching that at home in my pajamas. Steve? What can we expect from Aptera today without giving everything away?
Well, I think you're going to see a parade of uh, Aptera vehicles, sort of in order of um, their completion date and design date. You know, the different stages: alpha, beta, gamma, and then finally you're going to see Artemis, which represents our first vehicle going to full validation. You know, when we debuted these vehicles at CES, Hermes was drivable, and we gave hundreds of drives around Las Vegas. But for the team to complete the mission in time, we gave them a very limited set of goals. The vehicle just needed to drive and have functioning solar. That's it. There was no interior. There was no air conditioning system. It was bare bones, and that vehicle still is bare bones because it's used as a suspension and braking development vehicle, so you can quickly change things out, bushings, that kind of stuff, which we're doing. Artemis, on the other hand, represents the first vehicle to have essentially virtually everything that's designed for the vehicle: air conditioning, the DCU computer, the touchscreen, all the interior pieces, emergency cabin release. I mean, on and on and on. Every nut, bolt, bracket. Now, it may be, you know, if there's a folded or bent sheet metal part, it may be produced on like a temporary tool instead of a hard steel tool, just because invariably in validation, you are going to find things. But the vehicle, like many manufacturers, has entered validation with all of its systems, some of them very mature and basically just needing like final tick the boxes, and some of them that are going to go through full validation from the very beginning. And hopefully we don't find bad stuff, but it's normal to, you know, change bushings or shocks or brake pads and things like this to change the design of it during this stage. And so we're looking forward to kicking that off. It's going to be exciting because everything the vehicle has designed on it is on it.
So I had a little bit of computer issues going on at the beginning. I kind of missed the first part of that. Was it okay over for you, Martin? That
Yeah, I
came
think
out.
your screen share wasn't working. It was coming up with a blank screen, so I removed it and put
Oh,
a sort of
okay.
slightly bigger. And so I guess the question is, Steve, that lots of people watching and listening will ask is that that's all great, but how close are you to those people that have been waiting so long to finally get inside their own vehicles? Are you any closer to knowing when that's going to be?
Uh, yes, you know, I have to be very careful. Everything is related to funding, and I'm only allowed to talk about funding in a very specific way. And so I want to say it's positive, and I don't just mean crowdfunding. The crowdfunding has been great, and it's got us to where we are. But the kind of next step that we need to get for production, that's something the finance team has been working on for a while. And I just I just want to say it's positive. That's all I can say about it. Because if I say anything more, then I get in trouble
You get in
from
trouble.
a lot of people. Yes, but I would say the production part is related to that. The validation part is what we're doing right now with our current funding, which is great. It's a necessary step of the vehicle, you know, because you have all kinds of parts of the vehicle, everything that's been designed. It's great that it's designed, but now it has to be validated. You have to test what you've designed to make sure you can even build it, or to make sure it lasts, or et cetera. You know, the doors have to be closed 50,000 times, for example. So those are important things. They're not. It's not make work. It's essential stuff to make sure we ship a quality product, and we don't want to ship anything prematurely. Even though I know our customers are dying for it, they want it. We want, you know, it's a balance. You still want to hold open the door of being able to send over the air firmware upgrades as you discover things. You know, so you want it to be as perfect as you can, but you don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. So it's a
Mm,
very tough balance.
Tom.
Yeah. So today when people tune in, I kind of missed the first part of this, so I just want to kind of just reiterate. So you'll have all the different Aptera iterations up until now, I guess, on display.
Yeah, we just want to show people, you know, where we came from. The alphas, which are the sort of concept vehicles, just
Right.
to, when Chris and I restarted the company, we had to start from scratch. And so the alphas were showing that we could do that.
Right.
That was back when we were committed to in-wheel motors.
Right.
Somewhere around the beta or after the gamma stage, we decided for development reasons to move to the inboard motor. And so that's what we've had in Hermes, and that's what we've had in all the new generation vehicles.
Right. So, but now you have a vehicle that's, all the systems are in place and we kind of ready to go, very like production intent. Basically, this is the vehicle with all the systems and everything.
Yes, if you look at Gamma, for example, the vehicle when you and I were in Abu Dhabi, the vehicle that we were expecting there, but it was being held up by the recalcitrant border patrol in Los Angeles, and it didn't even make the show. That vehicle looks very, it could pass maybe as a production vehicle, even though it's a prototype. But that vehicle was not made with. It was made with dimensions and surfaces that were representative of design intent, but many of the parts were one-offs, or they were made, in just cheap molds or stuff like this. It wasn't a production. That vehicle couldn't really be produced in volume. These vehicles, on the other hand, are made with mostly high volume processes, from the beak to the solar panels, everything else. So even the glass that we're using now for our solar panels are from our production supplier in Europe. Just to expound upon that for a moment, our rear deck lid, the solar lid, is the current panel that we have is a polymer panel. And polymer is great because it's lower cost. It's not as good performance as the glass, but there was no one in the world with an oven big enough to make the curved glass panel for our rear solar deck lid. And so our manufacturer in Europe only recently, even though it's not like a matter of funding, it's a matter of their development time, because we paid for it long ago. But our manufacturer in Europe was only recently able to complete the special oven and then develop the process to make this very large glass panel. We sandwich it with our matrix, our polymer matrix and solar cells here in California. But just making that curved glass piece was an extraordinary effort from someone who does automotive glass, for years. So that's just an example of some of the challenges.
How big is your reservation list now? How big's the queue for people who want one?
I haven't checked it recently. Last time I checked, it was around 50,000, and we haven't really tried to encourage more people to get reservations since for a while, simply because we've got 2 years of production ahead of us, and so that hasn't been our focus.
Now, I know we can't talk about future funding because this it's all fluid, but I can probably say that with over 100 million raised in crowdfunding, you've captured people's imagination. You've had one of the most successful crowdfunding programs of anything, really. You've raised a huge amount of money through just the community, a huge amount of support, and yet you can't be immune to, and I've seen it in the comments here this morning from people who I promise that, like, they're regular viewers, we know them, they're lovely people, but in the comments I can see, like, none of this matters until you actually ship. You obviously got a huge level of community support, and yet you can't be immune to those voices that go, I've been waiting for ages and it's still not here. How do you react to that?
I have to agree with them. They're right. If I were an Aptera customer, I would be frustrated too, because it has taken us a very long time. On the other hand, I think we've been as transparent as we could about being able to start production 9 months after the final round has been raised. There's lots of final tooling and things that are gated by that larger chunk of money. Now, the good news is, as we've continued to crowdfund, that larger chunk of money that we've needed has shrunk. So it's a smaller lift. But I think our customers, have every right to be frustrated with our delay in getting into production. I certainly would be too. All I can say is we're doing everything we can to make sure it's a quality vehicle. without problems, without bugs, without things that are going to break, and with software that works beautifully at all levels. I would remind everybody, if you look at it, if you break it down into its elements of our vehicle, it's, exotic alloys, carbon fiber, 17 computers, almost 200 solar cells. It's closer to a spacecraft than it is an electric vehicle. And it has taken a longer time, not only because of funding, but because I would say most of the tier ones didn't want to work with us because we were a startup or we were a weird looking vehicle. And so things that we wanted to buy off the shelf, we couldn't. We had to develop ourselves. But that's resulted in something that's very efficient, very lightweight, something that we control the whole hardware and firmware stack, with the exception of the powertrain. And it's made for a better product. It's made for a product that we can upgrade. Virtually every microcontroller that's on the vehicle is ours. And so everything that needs to change and evolve will be done with over-the-air updates. We're not hemmed in by, I know a friend that works for an OEM and their electric vehicle program. Whenever they want to change code, it takes 6 months because they have to work with the tier one. They have to pay them millions of dollars and test, and then they get the code back. And there's no way big OEMs can update that quickly because of how their vehicles are integrated with other people's tier one parts. We don't have that problem anymore at Aptera. It was an unintended consequence of the tier ones refusing to work with us.
Just to continue on that stream about just difficulties. So Urban Strinkan, who's a regular viewer, says, we were waiting for Aptera production version on the road for too long. Just look at Xiaomi going from idea to over 200,000 produced cars in 2 years. Well, Xiaomi is a huge company with a lot of resources and capital, like gigantic, huge. And so, I mean, what they've done is amazing over there at Xiaomi, but it's two very different kind of projects. But so, Steve, I just want to say, I understand that you're going to be doing a cross-country road trip now with this car a little later in this summer to showcase it, as well as collect more data, I guess validation data. Will this be a tour where fans and reservation holders can come and see the car in person at different spots, and do you have a departure date set?
I believe so. We don't have a departure date set yet. It's probably going to be around the August timeframe, probably peak heat, which is great because we have air conditioning. But while that, I'm sure we'll collect some data. Its primary purpose isn't for that kind of validation. Its primary purpose is to be an ambassador for the brand, to show people the vehicle. We have Gemini coming online in just a few weeks, and that's another validation vehicle that's closer to production weight. I'll give you an example. Our battery manufacturer, there's heat exchangers on the bottom of the battery, and for a lot of reasons, for their process and the materials, the first temporary heat exchangers that we had were made of stainless steel, not the design intent aluminum. So Hermes battery weighs like 70 pounds more than it should. So there's stuff like that Hermes wasn't reflective of the production weight. So Gemini will be, and that's where we're going to be doing a lot of our final efficiency testing and powertrain validation.
Cool. So Aptera was the first company, I believe, to say that it would use the Tesla connector. And that was even before Tesla made the announcement that it would open up its network to other automakers. So for sure, the car is going to have the J3400 or NACS connector. But has Tesla said to you whether or not they will let Aptera charge on their network?
Yes. We were working with them about 2 years ago when we paused fast charging on our side because we were working with another manufacturer of BMSs who was acquired by an OEM. And then around that same time, we had cut ties with them because I said, look, we're not going to own anything, right? We're not going to own the firmware. We're not going to own really the design. Mm-hmm. We'll be trapped like this. And they wanted another couple of million, to finish the deal. So we said no. That's when we became vertically integrated in our own BMS. but we paused the DC fast charge integration at that time just so we could roll our own BMS. We have all of the equipment here to simulate the DC fast charging, and we have a connection with Tesla, who we were working with originally to set that up. But they, in the past, when we were working on it, they've been supportive, and I don't see any impediment to us doing that in the future.
Okay.
How does it? Let's take the second, your second stint, as it were, or the second generation of your Aptera journey. Even since 2019, the EV industry has changed enormously. Geographically, it's changed enormously. We see over 50% EV now in China. In May, June's going to be about 55% EV. And the majority of those are pure BEV in the world's biggest car market. Europe, probably somewhere between the two. And then the US, with policy and regulation, seems to be going in a new direction. What's it been like for you inside this pressure cooker to get this product on the market? And you've looked around and you've seen Fisker come with billions of dollars and not be able to do it. We've seen Northvolt, the battery cell maker, I think it's 14 or 15 billion euros, massively capitalized, couldn't make it work, and that's now being picked apart by people who want to buy the bits of the business. And here you are, still going. You're looking around, others are failing all around you, and they've got just infinite amounts of money. What's it been like for you personally, watching that evolution of the EV industry, and you're still trying to get this product out?
Well, it's been quite interesting. A lot of it's counterintuitive, but I would say, I've had, I met Dominic in Abu Dhabi. I lived in Abu Dhabi for 2 years. I immigrated there. Beforehand, I immigrated to Germany. I worked in Germany for 5 years. When I got out of the Army, I had to immigrate to stay there. And I've traveled and worked in probably 10 different countries when I worked for the family office in the Middle East. And what I've come to understand is that when we talk about the United States, we think of it as a country, and we roll up the statistics in terms of the country. But I think maybe a better way to think about it is every state is really its own country, right? Because the state laws and the culture and the economics are so radically different, let's say, between California and Mississippi. And it's really better to think about it like different countries. So if you look at it that way, if you go to California, where I live, all you see, especially in my neighborhood, are electric vehicles. Recently, I was in Texas, and I didn't see one electric vehicle the entire time I was in northern Texas, around the Panhandle or Texoma, that area they call it. So I think it's very regional, and it depends on lots of factors. All the vehicles there were pickup trucks, and they were diesel because they have to run, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles and carry lots of gear for the oil wells and things like that to service the oil wells. But where I live, you can function with an electric vehicle just fine. So I was going to say, I think with the change in the election, it's unfortunate that maybe some of the subsidies are going to go away, but we've never really built our plan around subsidies. Those would have helped. So that's the one thing that we're doing different. We're not hoping that we get some big $7,500 subsidy to make our vehicle affordable. We're trying to do it on our own. We're not hoping for handouts and planning around that. And so I think that's been one of the fundamental different things from our plan from the beginning versus some of the other companies that you mentioned.
Right. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if you saw this. There was an article on Inside EVs this week, and I don't think I have it right handy, but it was just talking about the value of small startup companies and why the auto industry still needs them. So recently we've had Tello, which you're kind of related to, because I wanted to talk about that for a second in a minute. And there's Slate, and I'm sure there's some other ones I'm not thinking about, but those are like the big top of mind ones right now. Just like their value, because small companies will take risks and move the technology forward, like Tesla did. For instance, the OEMs were not pushing nearly as hard as they really needed to get it took Tesla to be the first one to have like a 200-mile sedan, 5-passenger sedan on the road, instead of the Nissans or the Chevrolets or the Fords, etc. So the role of these like companies, these these startups is like super important. I feel, to move things forward, and there are successes, right? Tesla obviously being the big one. So yeah, we're really hoping. I mean, it's been like a long journey for you, because for people who don't know out there that are watching, you began this journey back in the 2000s, right? The late 2008 or so.
Yeah, we started the company in 2006, the first company in my garage, and then Chris and I were asked to leave the company in late 2008, I think, early 2009. And he went off and started Flux Power and took it public. And I became a farmer, and that took me to the Middle East. It was only in 2019 that we decided to.
Right?
Yeah.
Fambro.
It was only 2019 that we decided to to revisit the whole idea, and we started the company from scratch.
So just waiting for Martin to come back. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe he has a little emergency over there. But you did mention earlier that you switched from in-wheel motors to inboard motor. Just how does that? Do you notice like an effect on the just the handling dynamics and all that kind of situation?
A little bit. I think the suspension team did a great job in integrating the in-wheel motors when we had them, and accounting for the unsprung mass.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have a place in the vehicle at some point in the future for the rear drive wheel. But there was just much more development that was needed, and we just weren't in a position to do that development. It doesn't mean anything bad at all about Lafayette in-wheel motors. They're a fantastic company. They make great products, and they're very innovative. But this particular motor that we needed more development, and we just didn't have the resources at the time to do it.
Right. Yeah, I just asked because when in-wheel motors have been this like big thing since way back in like 2008. I don't know if you remember the Lightning over there in England that had that sports GT. It was supposed to it had in-wheel motors, and so we've been looking at this technology to become commercial for a long time, and it hasn't. And we thought maybe I'd see it with you. We just saw it with the pickup truck, Lord Motors,
Lordstown, yes.
Lordstown, yeah. But yeah, and then that fizzled out. But now Volkswagen actually is talking about using them on to make their ID2 car, like an all-wheel drive version of that. They're building that on this small MEB platform that's a front-wheel drive platform, but they're thinking of using in-wheel motors to make it an all-wheel drive. Yeah. So I just want to touch on that real quick, but I think we probably kept you for a long enough.
That's about half an hour. Yeah. Sorry,
I've got a hard stop. 2 minutes ago.
Okay. Look, Steve, thank you so much for coming on. Sorry, I had to dash. I've been waiting for those deliveries. They gave me the all-day window, and it's just as you came on, they made my deliveries.
Of course it would. That's the way it works.
Amazing. Hey, we'll be tuned in later. How can we watch that? Is it YouTube? How can we tune in?
I think it's going to be on YouTube. Yes. Just check for a link there.
Amazing.
Right. Just go to the Aptera channel on YouTube, and there would be you have a live show waiting for you you can get a notification, and but it's at 3:00 Pacific time or 6:00 Eastern time.
3:00 Pacific. The team has been working day and night for the past month. It's just they've done an amazing job, and it's going to be such a big reward for them to see it.
Amazing. We appreciate your time. It's early. Thank you
so
much, Steve. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Right. Good luck.
Take care.
Okay.
Thank
you. Bye. Amazing. Well, okay, let me flip that round so we look. That's how we look normally. That's how we normally look.
All right.
Hey, that's fascinating. I totally understand why there's so many people either in the comments or generally I see it online on Reddit and stuff, and they're so doubtful over the project. And as Steve said himself, like he totally understands it. He gets it. He'd be frustrated as well. And I sympathize with them. But there's something about this kind of scrappy startup culture that hasn't gone through the SPAC process of raising, $5 billion and then, couldn't make a car that would unlock itself like a Fisker Ocean. And, and you're like, where's all the money gone?